I'm Greg Giuliano. I'm an executive coach, organizational change consultant, and author. I believe leaders have the power to shape the future and change people's lives. I also believe people who challenge the status quo and go beyond usual and ordinary are rare. They're willing to go to the edge and push farther, over and over again. When I find these ultra leaders, I love to talk with them. In each episode, I talk with ultra leaders to learn how they do what they do and how they keep growing as leaders. I promise you a full dose of ultra leadership from other ultra leaders just like you in every conversation. We're at the edge of another episode. Let's jump in. Welcome to another episode of Ultra Leadership. My guest today is Elaine Richards. Elaine is COO at 37Signals, the makers of Basecamp and Hey. Before that, Elaine was EVP and head of business operations at Cars.com. Elaine has a track record of driving growth, operational excellence, and competitive distinction in B2B and B2C digital media and technology businesses. She has over 15 years of experience successfully leading multi-million-dollar P&Ls in progressive leadership roles across every function, including strategic planning, sales, marketing, operations, customer service, product development, culture leadership, and talent development. A true collaborator and mentor, Elaine enjoys building and working with high-performing teams and cultures that deliver business and revenue goals and meet the needs of target customers. She also gives back to the community. She serves on a number of boards, including the boards at A Better Chicago, Broadway Across Borders, and the Executive Advisory Board for the College of Business and Technology at Northern Illinois University. I am really excited about our conversation today. Welcome, Elaine.
Thanks, Greg. What a generous introduction.
Oh, we could spend the whole time talking about Broadway Across Borders, but probably you and I might be the only two that would enjoy that conversation on the call. So we'll save that for another time.
Absolutely.
But I would love to learn more about that. So I'd like to jump in because as you and I have spoken and I was putting together this introduction, you have played so many different roles in organizations in your career. I'm curious that as you have risen now to enterprise level leadership, what's the through line that you have noticed that these are the beliefs and the behaviors that have been consistent and necessary for you to succeed in these different roles at different levels in an organization?
Sure. It's interesting that you bring this up. I think a lot of people encounter this shift in mindset that needs to happen. And it's a little bit of a challenging one, right? Which is as you progress in your career and you move upward and across organizations, generally speaking, you start out because you build an expertise in a particular functional area, right? I'm a marketer, I'm a sales leader, I'm an operations leader. And as you start to work across bigger teams and cross-functionally, you have to be willing to kind of let go of that notion of being the smartest person in the room, if you will, and really have it be more about your ability to bring teams together, to find the other smartest people in the room, and to get them together to work toward a common goal and a common purpose. And it's really tough, right? Because we all believe that we become known for this area of expertise, and that's what we're rewarded for. We want to do well. We want to bring that forward. But that actually becomes not the job. As I said, especially as you move across functions and you have multifunctional responsibility and that kind of thing. And it's just really hard to let go of.
Yeah, well, it is a hard step for folks to take. So how did you do it? What worked for you? Let's give the audience a tip.
Well, I think I had the good fortune of some really great mentors who I think did some generous, thwapping across the head and being like, hey, dummy, this is not what you're here for, and pointing me in the right direction. I also think if you can just visualize the job differently and you can say, look, my job is actually not to have the answers. If I'm the one providing the answers in the room, I actually failed. And you really take a hard line with yourself, right? And say, my job is to get the answers out of other people and have this be as little about me as possible. I think that's a good thing to remind yourself and sort of keep yourself on the right track.
Yeah, well, and especially like a lot of the times, the answer.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, I want to tell them the answer. And you can't. So you're paying attention to the process more than the content.
Yes, that's really well said. I absolutely agree, right? If you can build a good process, you can, what's the old adage of, teaching people how to fish kind of thing, right? If
Yeah.
you focus on that, I think you're building leadership teams around you for the long term. If you answer the question, even if you know the answer, then all you've done is proven that yet again, you can answer the question, which is great if you would like to do that and be in this particular role, in this particular organization, providing all the answers here to forward. And I don't think that's anybody's, in anybody's best interest.
Yeah. So the other piece in terms of the role of a people manager, I'm curious what you think about just how it's changed. And just in the last 5 years, when you think about managing pre-pandemic versus now, where you have more dispersed teams, you have more people working remotely, you have a hybrid situation in organizations. What do you see as the changes in you're running operations for an organization?
Sure.
What's your expectation for people managers in this new world that we are creating as we go?
Yeah, the burden on people managers has really gotten higher, particularly as we've gone more remote and more hybrid. And I don't know that everybody realizes this. There's interesting academic literature, and I think you and I talked once. I'm in the process of a doctoral candidacy in business. And one of the things we research a lot is different kinds of leadership. So there's transactional leadership, right? I tell you to do a thing, you do the thing, we check the box, we move on. And then there's transformational leadership where we focus more on, do I communicate a vision and a purpose and a value to you that you find useful and empowering, and then you're able to work more autonomously. And so the challenge is to get that higher level transformational leadership done in these virtual and remote environments. There's this way higher burden on the leader to say, what vehicles am I using? Not even say what vehicles, to use all the vehicles, let me say, right? To communicate what my vision is, what my expectations are, what my feedback is to my teams and my employees in a way that didn't exist before, right? Because previously, if you assume most of us were working in person and you see your supervisor at some level, right, on a regular basis, that communication is really easy to get done, right? I can see my boss go by. I can take the visual cues. In a 2-minute conversation in the hallway, I can take the directional cue. There's no serendipity anymore. So now it flips to me, the leader. I need to use the virtual chat, the video conference, the in-person, the in-person meetings that I can get, the emails, the documents, whatever it is. I need to use all the things because I can't be sure of what you're going to get and when. And so the only way to communicate effectively, particularly over a larger organization, is to do more of it more of the time.
Yeah. So we're really, when we're a people manager, a connector of dots with people, like
Absolutely.
constantly trying to create context for people so that when they can't find me as the manager, I can trust that the decisions that they're going to make are aligned with what we're trying to achieve, right?
Exactly. More so than ever, right? Because not only do they see less of their manager, they see less of everybody. They see less of
Right.
everything, right? So, yeah, across the organization. And I think this is why, although employees consistently report, right, that they enjoy working from home, working remotely, all that flexibility, and managers say consistently that they're uncomfortable, or I won't say all of them, right? But there's a strong number of them that talk about being uncomfortable and they can't put their finger on it. But I'm confident that this is what it is, and where we see, let's call it more wobbly, more insecure outcomes, right? It's because that context, there are not enough avenues being employed for that context.
Yeah. If my job is to align people, the lion's share of my time is just spent aligning people.
Right.
I think that we're asking a lot of managers today to do that, and they're just so uncomfortable themselves and lack confidence because it's a new world for them too. And so how are we helping our people managers to close their knowledge and skill gap to give people what they need in order to show up and shape their work, do their best stuff?
Absolutely. I think what we're seeing in the survey results is independent contributors know what they need to do to be successful, and they're very comfortable doing it. I don't think most of our, front to middle line managers do.
And they're the ones that we rely on, right, to run the business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So this is about developing managers. You're back in school learning. So you are all about, you're a lifelong learner. What are you doing to keep yourself growing as a leader,
Well,
in addition to working on a PhD
that's right.
in your spare time?
In addition to my dissertation, yeah. I am. I do think that I am a lifelong learner. I also think, management and leadership is a lifelong learning process. Society changes, people change. We can't ever call this a done deal. For me, school is part of that and learning more about the theory behind it and what makes organizations effective. I've had the good fortune to be in a number of different organizations of many different sizes, right? From thousands of people down to tens of people, and have very different cultures. And so for me, that's been an interesting opportunity as well. At 37 Signals, for example, we run a relatively small, I think we have about 75, 80 people, but fully distributed organization. And it's also very flat. And there's also a lot of emphasis on asynchronous communication and a lot of emphasis on autonomy, all of which I love, and all of which has certain qualifying conditions around it, right? You have to have people who are at a certain skill level. You have to have cultures and tools of a certain type to facilitate that culture. And so I think seeing and working in very different environments, seeing and talking to different organizations has helped me learn, what makes things successful based on different environments. I think it's really interesting. I think you've seen this too. People talk about like, oh, should all companies go remote? Should all companies go back in the office? Blah, blah, blah. And there isn't one answer, right? There really
Right.
isn't, right? It's pick what you think, I guess it's, senior leadership, right? Pick what you think is right for your organization. Pick what you're comfortable with. It doesn't matter really. What matters more is what are you putting around it to make sure that that's successful?
Yeah, that's it, right? What do our people need? It's a one size fits one, not one size fits all. So for our people to show up and deliver the customer experience that we want,
That's right.
what's the experience that we have a responsibility as leaders to create for our people
That's right.
so that they can do that?
And interesting.
And it's going to be different.
Well, and not only can it be interesting, different from company to company, I think it's different from role to role.
100%.
So depending on the kind of work and the kind of team structure and so on and so forth, and I am sensitive to the fact that this is difficult when you tell one department and one team that they can, work remotely, and you tell another team they've got to come in and all these kinds of things. But I definitely think that the requirement is different from role to role.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, it's one size fits all doesn't work, and even inside of an organization. So high performance. One of the questions I like to ask folks is, when you think about high performing teams, what's the behavior or the practice that if everybody did it, the team's performance would improve? I'm going to flip that on you. So don't answer, yeah, I'm going to flip it a little bit. I'm going to ask you, because you've had all this experience, the best team that you were on, what made it the best team, right? What was the behavior or practice that made it the best team? And the worst team that you were on, what made it the worst team? Don't tell us which team it was, but when you think about, that team, that was a mess. Why was it a mess? So we can get the both and we can get two nuggets out of this.
Sure. So I think, when I think about best team, the best team I've led was actually a cross-functional team. We were trying to deliver a specific customer, a new specific customer experience. And we had representation there from all over the organization, right? Different functional departments. And trying to figure out, okay, we're time boxed and resource boxed into, we got to deliver this thing in this period of time. We have this amount of resources, so on and so forth. And when we got clear on this is what we want our experience and our end state to look like, then I won't say it got easy because we still had a lot of difficult decisions, but it was very unifying for then everybody to understand, okay, this is my piece of this. Right? I'm from engineering. This is the piece that I've got to deliver. I'm from, I'm from marketing. I'm from product, whatever. This is what I've got to deliver. And it also enabled them to work together and say, like, okay, well, if we do it that way, the load time on this software is terrible. Right. And so, yes, well, it'll technically get done, like, who's going to use it because it's terrible. And so we were able to come back around a team and each contribute, or, certain teams contribute, say, well, I can make this faster if I do this. I can take this out, right? And there's a lot of really great collaborative exchange. And I strongly believe it's because of the upfront work, getting everybody on the same page, say, why are we here? What are we after, right?
Yeah.
And I have not seen an organization yet, and I would really be fearful of anyone where, if you bring people ultimately want to do the right thing, they want to do the right thing by your customers, by your business, right? So
Yeah.
people do care. And when you can define that well, then you've got them something that they can work on together. I think the worst one was actually polar opposite. Not that people had, it's not exactly around like a lack of clarity around the goal, but too many goals, right? So there were, probably coming up on like a dozen different initiatives that this team was trying to deliver. And so same thing, right? People want to do a good job. People want to contribute the right thing, but nobody could get in line because, everything was a part of something else, right? And so instead of this focus, and so I think that would be one of my key sort of suggestions here is focus is key. And strategically and importantly and quickly moving this one ball forward, there's, a dozen balls here. We're all tapping them at our finger and maybe moving them a centimeter a piece, and ultimately, all feeling very frustrated and not getting done what we want to get done.
Yeah. We cannot put the whole backlog in our roadmap for the next
Exactly.
6 months.
Exactly. Right. It's all important. We give that. Right. We accept that. No,
It just won't. It just won't work. Yeah.
right.
So the power of again aligning people of here's what's most important. Here's what we're not going to do. Right. So a lot of the teams that I work with, a whole bunch of our time is spent. We get aligned on what are we going to do, and we get very clear on what's the list of things that we are not going to do now, and we're going to tell all of our people that we are not going to do. And it's hard because sometimes, I got teams that are halfway down the road on something. They're all invested in it. That's my whole team's purpose for being. And you're going to tell me now that we're not going to do it. And so it gets really charged having that, what are we not going to do conversation.
Yes. And all of it, by the way, looks really important, right? Well, how can we're downright negligent if we don't do these three things. So we got to get these three on the list. And, and it all looks really important. But, the other thing I've seen, which is really interesting, is that teams that are able to succeed together really bond well and really start to achieve better velocity than ever. So while you'll have executives and leadership teams who argue, well, we got to do it all because the business, there's no choice. It's all mission critical, right? And we got enough people, we should be able to push it all. If you really want velocity, let them focus first, let them get those first wins over the line at pace, and you'll be amazed what happens in the next round.
Yeah, our work, that's what we do, right? To get that roadmap. And in the first 90 days, what are we celebrating?
That's right.
So that okay, that feels good. Let's do it some more.
Exactly. I love that question, by the way. I usually pose it to teams as, how will we know if we're supposed to have a party?
I love that.
Right? Something's going to happen here. And in 90 days, I'd like to be able to know if I should be ordering cake and balloons and so on. So, right, what's the measure by which we're going to decide that?
I'm stealing that. I'm just writing that down. I'm totally stealing that. How should we know if we're going to have I love it. So I've learned a ton. I like to end the meetings that I have with groups and my coaching conversations just, what are we grateful for today? Right? Because practicing gratitude, it makes us feel better. So I'm grateful that you've been here and we got to have this conversation. What are you grateful for today?
Well, likewise, I am so honored to be invited to speak with you today. This is always my favorite conversation. I am really grateful for the variety of experiences that I've been able to have. I don't know if we spoke about this. I came out of undergraduate as a journalism major. I thought that's what I was going to do with my life. I had a very kind of narrow view of it. And as we all have twists and turns in our lives, things, happen. And I could never have predicted the road that would get me to today. But I'm grateful for that serendipity. It's really made a wonderful, career history for me.
Yeah, well, and that serendipity has made a big impact on a whole bunch of other people's lives because you took that turn.
We'll see about that, but yeah.
I'm sure if I got everybody in the room, I'm going to hear good things. So I really appreciate you being here. So thank you very, very much.
Thanks. It's been a lot of fun.
All right. And thanks to you for listening. This has been another episode of Ultra Leadership. We'll see you next time.
If you're enjoying Ultra Leadership, please take a minute and give us a review wherever you find your podcasts. And please stay in touch. Sign up for our Ultra Leadership newsletter at ultraleadership.com. Now, before you jump to your next meeting, I invite you to reflect on what you heard today. What stood out for you? What insight might you want to incorporate into your leadership practice? Until next time, remember, As a leader, you always have the power to shape the future and change lives. So go to the edge and push farther. Thanks for listening.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.